I'm Rachel Holt, he's Mike Cole, and welcome to episode 2 of The Dish. We have a number of topics to discuss today regarding the state of the Red Sox and Major League Baseball. The trade deadline is not too far away on August 1st. We're about at the halfway point of the season. So Mike, let's talk buyers and sellers.
Right on.
Who are some teams that you think will be big buyers this year?
I'm going to start with the Miami Marlins. I think that the Marlins are a team that when everybody's clicking has some of the better talent, especially in the National League East. Most people see that as a two-team race, Washington and New York, but I like Miami, especially if Jose Fernandez is pitching well, he's healthy, and if Giancarlo Stanton gets his act together and starts hitting like we know he can. One thing I look for them to do, maybe try to get a reliever. I think they've been already connected to, the Yankees, Aroldis Chapman. I think getting a big arm like that in the back of that bullpen could mean wonders for that team. Another team out on the West Coast in the American League, Seattle Mariners. They've had issues with their pitching, a lot of injuries so far. Felix Hernandez, they got to get him back, they got to get him healthy, and they got to get him contributing. If they can do that, though, I think their lineup's deep enough, and I think that rotation can be good enough with James Paxton up. Now he's throwing 100 miles per hour out of nowhere. If they get a little bit of relief help as well, they can be a dangerous team too. Okay, what about some of the sellers? One team I look at that is not necessarily a team you think of as a seller traditionally, the New York Yankees. You touched on Chapman. Whether or not the Yankees decide they want to sell is going to be a controversial issue, but they do have the pieces, especially the back end of that bullpen. Chapman's going to be a free agent next year. They can get a haul for him. If they want to dangle Andrew Miller, they could do that too, and they could still probably contend if they only trade away one of them. Another team that I look to be a seller is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Came into the season with high expectations. They obviously went out and got Zach Greinke, did a couple good things, and Paul Goldschmidt's evolved into one of the better players in the game. Just hasn't worked out for them this season. They've got a couple bullpen pieces that they can get with the sky-high prices of relievers last few years. There's certainly some value there. I think you look at a guy like Brad Ziegler, their closer. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Maybe you ship him off and kind of continue your rebuild on the fly. So I think those two teams are teams that could look to sell off some arms and make profit.
Well, Mike, the Red Sox are a team that's all in on trying to win another World Series this year. So for more on what they need to do before the trade deadline, we're going to hear from two of our baseball insiders.
I'm NESN.com Red Sox beat writer Sam Galanis here with Zack Cox, and we're here to talk about the MLB non-waiver trade deadline. So the Red Sox definitely are in need of a starting pitcher. There's no doubt about that. There's been talk of guys like Jose Fernandez, Sonny Gray, but at this point I'm not too sure that the Red Sox want to give up that much. What do you think?
Starting pitcher is definitely a big need for them. They've seen it's really been a struggle all season outside of Stephen Wright and David Price, and we've even seen with them they've had some issues lately. So I do think if they're going to contend the way that they hope they will this season, they're definitely going to need to address it.
And I think they should probably go with a guy like Drew Pomeranz of the San Diego Padres. The Padres are going to be big sellers. They have been all season. And he would be almost like a John Lackey 2013 type guy where he's not the best, but he's going to be serviceable and consistent.
I agree. Yeah, shoring up that bottom part of the rotation might be the way to go for them. I mean, obviously people are going to talk about Chris Sale, talk about Fernandez, those kind of big names. But I think going for a third, fourth, fifth starter is probably the best route for them to take right now. So starting pitching definitely is their biggest need, but they do have some other needs as we've seen in these recent games. Setup man, I think, is something they really should address. Koji Uehara has not been as consistent this year as he has been in years past. Gigi Chizawa, same thing. That's where they're really missing not having Carson Smith, who is out for the season with Tommy John surgery. And also, their bench has really just kind of been very thin lately, especially in left field with all the injuries they've had to Brock Holt, Chris Young, Blake Swihart. If those guys come back relatively quickly, I think they'll be okay. But if not, that could be another spot where they're looking to get a depth guy ahead of the deadline.
Now we'll toss it over to Ricky Doyle, who's going to tell us more about the Home Run Derby.
So Giants ace Madison Bumgarner wants to be in the Home Run Derby. So too does reigning National League Cy Young Award winner Jake Arrieta and Cardinals hurler Adam Wainwright. Real cute guys. While the idea of pitchers participating in the Home Run Derby is fun, it's also kind of lame, especially if they're expected to compete against the best sluggers Major League Baseball has to offer. In short, they're gonna lose. But the novel concept did get us thinking about some other wacky ideas. Like, who would we pick to participate in an all-time Home Run Derby that's based solely on entertainment value and nothing more? Consider it the Dinner for Schmucks version of the Home Run Derby, although we mean that in the nicest way possible. For me, I'm calling upon Babe Ruth to lead the charge, if only because his legacy, particularly as it relates to power, is so out of control he almost seems fictional. The great Bambino will be joined in the Derby for the ages by Josh Gibson, who played 16 seasons in the Negro Leagues between 1930 and 1946. Gibson often is referred to as the Black Babe Ruth, though some baseball historians who saw him play would argue that Babe Ruth really was the white Josh Gibson. For some overseas flavor, let's add Sadahiro O and Ichiro Suzuki. O, who played 22 seasons in the Nippon Professional Baseball League from 1959 to 1980, holds the world all-time home run record with 868. And Ichiro, while never a power hitter, has long been the subject of a rumor, or better yet an old wives' tale, that he could actually hit more home runs if he wanted to. Well, let's put that theory to the test. And how about Adam Dunn and Willie Mo Pena, two guys who epitomize what it means to be a quote-unquote slugger. Dunn is especially intriguing given that he had 640 homer seasons yet never competed in the annual long ball competition. And finally, give me Jose Canseco and Ryan Harvey. Canseco for a laugh and nothing more. And Harvey, the guy who recently was spotted launching softball bombs toward the back wall at Tropicana Field because he's a member of the 2016 USA Futures Slow Pitch National Softball Team. And also because he has a pretty sick beard.
Here with NESN studio analyst Steve Lyons. And Steve, there's a lot of excitement surrounding the MLB AllStar Game. Voting ends June 30th, and then the teams will be announced shortly thereafter. A lot of Red Sox players in the mix. At this point, who do you think ends up in the final roster?
Yeah, it's been great, hasn't it? I mean, there's been so much excitement around the Red Sox team. They played so well for the first couple of months of the season. They're kind of hitting a bump in the road now. But, you know, when you look at the guys that certainly deserve to be there, you got to look at Bogey, Betts, and Bradley. Certainly Big Papi is going to be there. And Stephen Wright, you know, is making a bid to be maybe the all-star starter. I don't think he'll get the chance to start because no one wants to catch the knuckleball. Certainly not the starting catcher. So we'll see. I think there's going to be good representation there. And, you know, I think it'll be an exciting all-star game.
Wright, maybe one of the more surprising names on the list. What do you think his chances are of starting?
You know, when you look at the Kansas City catcher, Perez is going to be the starting catcher, and of course the manager is his manager. And I'm thinking he's going to say, "There's no way I'm not going to let you look bad, making your start in the All-Star game." So I think Steven probably won't start. And plus, when you look at what Chris Sale has done too now, you know, at this point, 13-2, he certainly deserves a start as well. So there's a bunch of guys that deserve it. I'm sure Stephen Wright will be on the team, might not start it.
Dustin Pedroia, one of the players that's kind of flying under the radar this season. He's also in the mix. What do you make of his 2016 season so far? Well,
you know, it's really hard to think of Dustin Pedroia being a guy that can fly under the radar. I mean, he's been a great player for so long, certainly, you know, a former MVP and all-star. This is a guy who, now that he's healthy again, goes out there and shows you what he can do. You know, I think the thing that's most impressive for me is that he loves to pull the ball, but right now he leads all major leaguers going the other way for opposite field hits. And that just shows you that his hands are healthy again. And he went through a period of time where he really couldn't drive the ball the other way, and he had to cheat to get out. And so he was always pulling everything, even balls that he knew he shouldn't be pulling, but it was the only way he could hit. Now, being healthy, he can do the things that he wants to do. Of course, he always is going to bring you the stellar defense. So, you know, I think he kind of likes flying under the radar. A lot of other guys are getting a lot of attention. He's just going out and playing his game.
All right, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
All right, anytime.
Mike, ready to play a little true or false?
I guess so.
Red Sox is the topic.
Right.
Starting pitching hasn't been performing up to expectations or what they would like it to be. Probably going to have to make a move at some point before the trade deadline. True or false, Yoan Moncada and Andrew Benintendi, two of the Red Sox best prospects, are on the team come August 2nd.
Ooh, good one. False. I think one of those two, if not both of them, are in a big move that gets them a big-name pitcher. I think if I had to choose, it would be Benintendi, who gets shipped at some point. I think Moncada is too much of an untouchable, but I think one of those two, if not both, is gone by deadline.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go false as well, though. I think you do whatever you can to keep both of those guys because they're potential franchise cornerstones. I agree with you. I think Benintendi's probably the guy that they move if they move on him, just because he's an outfielder. More of an opportunity to replenish that stock. So I'm going to go with false, although it'd be a little hesitant either one.
Agree.
All right, we're moving on. True or false? Clay Buchholz will end the season in the Red Sox rotation. He's already bounced back and forth between that and the bullpen, so what do you think?
Well, I'm going to go the big old false on this one because that kind of plays into what I just said about the Red Sox making a big trade. I think they make a big trade. Buchholz is the first guy to go. I think it was Stephen Wright, Rick Porcello, the guys like that have pitched well. I think Eduardo Rodriguez figures it out as well. The odd man out is Buchholz. Put him back in the bullpen. Even then, maybe get Joe Kelly back up here. He takes over the spot.
Yeah, Rodriguez, the one that's a little bit on the fence.
Yep.
You got to see what you still kind of early in his return process. I'm going to say true, though, that Buchholz ends the season in the rotation just because I think that they do have so many issues and they don't have a lot of depth that I just think it's got to get to a point where you just got to kind of keep rolling him out there, and maybe he does improve, and you know that he can perform at a high level, so maybe he figures it out at some point. Hey, nice talking to you, Mike.
Same.
That will do it for episode 2 of The Dish. Thanks for tuning in, but we're not done dishing out the scoop on the Sox this season, so make sure to keep it here on NESN.com for your latest insight and episodes.